Hello, booktubers. This is the Scholar Gentleman here with another book report. This, mine from Robert McCammon. Basically, coming out of the whole horror paperback craze of the late 70s throughout the 80s, complete with the tawdry covers with 3D embossing and everything like that. There's a book on this I'm going to pick up eventually because I'm kind of fascinated with it. That's where the Keep came out. That's a seminal horror novel that got turned into a movie. Anyway, Robert McCammon's first book that I read was Boy's Life. It was kind of a coming of age tale. It had supernatural elements in it, also some magical realism, and it was not unlike It, which had come out, I don't know, like a few years previous. It is really just a story about, lost innocence and growing up in the 60s, the mid to late 60s, a boomer childhood, and that's what A Boy's Life is. This one apparently was Robert McCammon's first straight non-horror novel. Just basically a psychological thriller with no supernatural elements in it. It opens up with we open with Mary Terrell, formerly Mary Terror. She used to be with a I guess you could call it a loose cell of anarchists back in the 60s that used to blow stuff up and kill people in the name of revolution. And since she's gone off the radar, she's basically gone to ground and changed her identity so many times, and now she lives in this really, really seedy Atlanta apartment complex. And it opens up with a baby waking her up from her sleep with its crying until she gets mad at it and puts its face on a hot burner on the stove. But it's not her baby. I'm not going to say any more unless I spoil it for you. But basically, she starts reminiscing about her times with the Stormfront and how everything was great, and she loved Lord Jack. He calls him Lord Jack, who is the cell leader. And suddenly she sees a coded message in the latest issue of Rolling Stone magazines, even though she thinks they sold out to the mindfuck state, as she calls it, years and years ago. It's a coded message for all Stormfront members to meet, and she thinks it's placed by Lord Jack. And she wants her youth back. She wants, basically, in some bizarre, twisted, perverse sense, this story is like a midlife crisis happening, but a midlife crisis for somebody who's like completely lost her mind. So she decides to kidnap another baby from a hospital and bring the meetings in New York City and bring that baby as an offering to Lord Jack so they can raise it together with the with the principles of peace, love, and harmony and all that, ignoring the fact that they killed and bombed a bunch of people in the past. So that's the delusion she's laboring under. She goes to steal a baby from the hospital from one Laura, also a child raised in the 60s, but nowhere near as hippie. She's basically traded out her ideals for a comfortable life, a husband who... Here's my kitty. Hi, Willie. A comfortable life, material wealth. Her husband's like the super ultra successful stockbroker. The marriage is pretty much a joke at this point, and he's cheating on her, which she discovers just before she has the baby. And right after she has the baby, here comes Mary Terrell, aka Mary Terror, disguising herself as a nurse to kidnap that baby. And what ensues is a nightmare pursuit across the country for Laura to get her baby back. Hence the title, Mine. And I'm surprised it hasn't been made into a movie yet. It's the very epitome of a page whipper. You just kind of keep going to find out what's going to happen next. I think I finished this book in 3 days, which for me is pretty fast. I'm not that fast of a reader. But I certainly will be looking at more of his books in the future. There's one still in print I saw at Barnes & Noble called Swan Song, I believe it was. It's about, the end of days, when the Earth is bathed in nuclear fire. It reminded me, it looked like The Stand, which reminds me of Stephen King, which reminds me to say that Robert McCammon is sort of a tighter, more meticulous version of Stephen King. He sets the scene expertly. He gets into his characters' heads, and yeah, you just kind of wanted to find out what happened next. Throughout the whole book, you're thinking, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know how this is going to end. So I love a novel that does that because it's not predictable. The violence is pretty uncompromising. I'm not going to say I had a complaint, but one thing I did observe in this book is that Mary Terror gets caught up to 3 different times in this book with the baby, in each time she gets away. And much like Ripley being plagued by the alien all those times in her life, you're kind of like, no one's luck could be this bad. But still, I bought it because it was told so well. The excuses for it happening were well presented, so you're able to look through it. It didn't feel like a Deus Machina at all. Didn't feel like the writer was permanently on Mary's side, which he isn't. And she eventually does meet Lord Jack, and I'll keep it at that. I'll keep it there. But this book had me turning the pages. It had me just wondering what... I didn't want the book to end, put it that way. So I just kind of, towards the end, I cut up into 20-page bites so I wouldn't be rushing to get it all finished, because I wanted to savor it a little bit. I kind of wish there had been a little more of like an epilogue type of series, like, what eventually happens to her husband Doug. She mentions that there's no future with him, and how's she going to build her life back? And yeah, I mean, this stuff is like all the stuff that happens in this book scars you for life, physically and mentally. But if you're looking for a good, exciting read that has some meat on its bones, please pick up Robert McCammon's Mine. It's still in print. Get it used. And I also like to mention, thanks to Campbell Reads, I found a new way to mark salient passages out of the book rather than dog-earing it. You just basically highlight something that you find particularly salient, and then you put like one of those little sticky markers right there at the bottom of the book, so you don't harm the book. I know it's an old book, but I don't want to deface it any more than I have to. Yeah, I'll definitely be reading more Robert McCammon. Right now I'm kind of between books, so I'm going to kind of maybe drift through some comics. I might read The House That Horror Built. I might read The War Magician. We'll see how it goes. I go back to work tomorrow, so I'll be probably taking a book with me to read, and I'll be well underway once the scene is set. Okay, this is the Scholar Gentleman signing off. Willie's curled up to go to bed over there. Give you a little, I know you can't wait to see him. Use your boo-boo. And the Scholar Gentleman signing off. Take care, folks.